Glenn, if you have a quick opening statement, get us rolling, and then go ahead.
Okay, we're excited. We've had a great preseason. We've had like a month of practice to get ready and had two great scrimmages, I thought, with Hobart and the Iroquois national team. So we're certainly ready to see where we are and see how we react to real games, games that count, and scores that count, and points that are up on the board. So that'll be some big ifs right now to see just how we react to that. But generally, I think the preseason has gone very well. I'm excited about the way some freshmen have joined into the mix and give us a whole new look offensively on skills with the ball. So, I mean, it's been fun to watch. I mean, I know there's going to be some peaks and valleys and ups and downs and whatnot with how different kids react, but it's been a great preseason. We're ready to hit Robert Morris on Saturday.
And what's the upside with joining the CAA this year?
Well, the exciting thing is these are kind of old opponents that we've played for years and years and years. When I first came here years and years and years ago, these were the teams we played, the Drexels and the Delawares and the Towsonds and the Hofstras. So we're kind of back to square one. So they're logical rivalries that we should have, and UMass has become a good rivalry for us coming out of the ECAC. And secondly, the fact that the CAA is a league that has a tournament at the end of the year, so you have basically two ways to get into the NCAAs. Your at-large strength of schedule and results and all that stuff, qualify you for it, or you win the automatic bid out of your league. So in our case, it would be the winner of that tournament at the end of the year. So you use the preseason CAA league to become one of the top fours and teams in the league and get into that tournament, and the winner gets the automatic bid. So that always gives you some incentive to look forward to at the end of the year. If things are going bad, maybe a third of the way through, you always know that, well, you got a chance to get into that and, get onto the national scene the second way, kind of. So that kind of makes it exciting, really.
Coach, what can you say about Dave and John really battling for that #1 goaltender spot right now?
Well, I mean, that's going to be, I've talked with you guys before, that's going to be our bugaboo initially, is who's going to be the starter in the cage and how's he going to react to the pressure and whatnot, because everybody puts that kind of pressure on a goaltender. You expect him to make saves. We don't expect either of them to win games for us. We just expect them to be steady and solid and consistent and stay focused the whole time. So my guess is that we're going to, I don't even know who it's going to be for the first game, but my guess is over the first few games we'll iron that out and we'll see which goalie is the one that's provided the best leadership, that the kids have the most confidence in, that we think can do the job for us. And we'll see just how they react. And that's the big unknown, is how they react to being in the goal for a whole game and, the peaks and valleys of a particular game. So that'll be very interesting for us.
Could you see a situation where, on Saturday at least, could you see a situation where possibly it could be like the two scrimmages where both of them maybe get some playing time in there? Or?
Oh, very likely. I would expect that. I mean, they could be going in and out on a regular basis, just like midfielders go in and out on a regular basis, and attackmen go in and out. We may use one for this part of the game and one for the next. So there'll be lots of scenarios. I don't think you have to have a starter. I don't think, unless you have an obvious kid who's definitely your best kid and the one you can count on the most. That's probably the best scenario. We'll see if we get to that point. I could easily see both of them in and out of the game constantly on Saturday.
And we've talked about face-offs before, but can you talk a little bit more about that? I know that's a strong point for you guys, but where does that rank up against other teams? How good do you think you are there?
Yeah, well, you don't know until you play people, and you got to understand face-off people. They all cheat all the time, so they're always breaking the rules, and it's a matter of what they get away with. We do like who we have. I mean, we have three very unique styles of face-off people, and we use all of them. We have a grinder a little bit, and kind of a true fogo, face-off, go-off kind of guy, and Joe Britt, and then the two Hennigan brothers both can get the quick one. And Danny's probably improved the most over the last 6 months, say, and so I think we have three very good face-off guys. We hope to be in the high 50s to 60% winning in those situations, but a lot of that counts on the face-off wing people, the short stick or the long sticks, whatever you put on the wing. And right now we're a little depleted in those situations, so we may count on the face-off guy himself to gain possessions. But you're right, face-off is almost as important as the goaltender for winning lacrosse games.
Coach, last year you guys lost to Lacrosse in the first game of the year last year. How much do you kind of take that into preparing for this weekend?
Well, I think they all remember that. Looking back on it and preparing, they played very well. I mean, I'll give them credit. They do a lot of unique things. They do have a style that's different from everybody else. They have a team that has 8 to 9 to 10 Canadians, and that's a whole different style of lacrosse. That's one of the reasons we wanted to play the Iroquois, because they're Native Americans, a lot of them from Canada, and they have the similar style of stick skills and backing in and force feeding to certain people. So we think that helped us prepare a little bit for what we'll see Saturday, but they'll be better athletes and a little more unified on what they're doing. But it'll be interesting. I mean, they're a very good lacrosse team and difficult to prepare for, and obviously a tough opener. But I think we're certainly, I feel, more prepared this year than we were at this stage a year ago. We have many more things in, a little more flexibility on what we're doing offensively and defensively. You know, we just don't have Drew Adams in the cage, and that could be the difference.
Is there more pressure now on guys like Matt McCreadis now than knowing that he's going to be one of the focal parts of the offense, or especially with the
Well, he was last year, although at this time last year he was actually a midfielder coming in off the bench, and he didn't really even start on attack for us at this stage of the game last year. But yeah, McCreadis is gonna have to be a key. I mean, he's our mature, steady sophomore playing with 2 freshmen, so I think it's a talented attack with Billy Gribben and Nick Dolick, and they all can run well, they ride well, they're aggressive on ground balls, they can make plays, they can carry the ball. We haven't always had that here. We haven't, we didn't have the kind of speed on attack that they kind of provide. So it's been nice to watch them in action, and I think they'll be very good. But the fact that they're also young and you're counting on a sophomore to be your veteran, that's going to be a little bit difficult. So. The midfield, we think we have some good, solid stable of athletes there, and we're going to have to score. We have to shoot well to win. There's no question, because we're going to have to wait and see what happens in the goaltending.
Can you give us a kind of a health update in particular on Jack and anyone else you might want to mention?
Well, Jack's a ways away. He's actually having trouble with one of his knees and getting another MRI, so he's going to be a while before he works in there. And we've also lost 2 other kids with ACLs, and Tyler Travis and Alex Garrity in the fall. So, I mean, those are tough blows for us, because they would all be serious starters on the wings and long stick and defensive midfield. So that hurts our depth, and you're only typically as strong as your weakest link, and you need a lot of depth in order to get good, and that kind of separates one team from the other. So right now our depth isn't where we would like it. I mean, it is a contact game, and it's an aggressive game, and you're going to have injuries, and you have to be able to weather those storms, and somebody else has to step in and be good enough to take up the slack. Starting the year, we thought long stick midfield was our strongest position. Now we've only got 2 guys there. We used to have 5, so.
Coach, can you just talk about, obviously, you talked a little bit about the schedule in the CAA, but non-conference, you have a couple of tough games, especially the trip to Duke in March. How much do you think the non-conference schedule is going to really going to shape this team going into the conference play?
Well, I mean, it's definitely a tough schedule. There's no question about that. Starting with, the full first half of the schedule is non-conference. We've been able to put all the CAA games into the last 5 weekends of the schedule. So from that standpoint, it's nice, but it jams up an awful lot of good opponents early, and when you're fighting weather and playing indoors at Notre Dame and indoors at Ohio State, they can be tough scenarios. We'll have our work cut out for us. We should find out who's tough and who can adjust and who's mentally stable to, withstand being on a downside at one time or another, because we're certainly not going to win all those, but we can compete with anybody. We'll see how we fare by the end of the year.
And who do you look at long stick midfielder now that two guys are down?
Well, we have Greg Brown would be the top one. Earl Ross should come back next week. He should get the cast off, but it'll probably be another 2 weeks before he sees game action, I think. One thing we have to avoid is trying to come back too fast and then missing the whole year, missing his senior year. So we'll take it easy with him, and we'll use Greg and Kevin Joyce. They've done it now for 2 weeks for us, and they're solid, but they're not quite the same athletic level as some of the kids that have experience or some of our highly touted freshmen. So we'll see what happens. We like the defense. Our defense is intact. Davis played a lot last year at close. Stuckey started most of the time, but Billy Davis played almost as much. And Kevin's been a starter for several years, and Bernier for several years. So we like the close defense, and we're actually getting better work with our defense this year because our attack is so much more athletic and runs so much better, and they get a little bit more competition and practice so their game, I think, has raised itself up, and they can stay with people a little bit better and handle the one-on-one pressure a little bit better than they could last year. So we like where they are. But we're thin there. We have to keep those kids healthy.
Can you talk a little bit, and you and I have spoken about it before, the kind of subtle differences that you may employ on defense given the situation in goal? You talked a little bit about maybe packing it in a little bit once in a while. Just from last year,
Yeah,
you were able to be a little more aggressive defensively.
Last year, we always knew we had Drew in the back, and he could make that great save, and we don't know that much about. In the long run, we'll be pretty similar to what we were like last year. We're still pretty athletic, and we'll be pretty aggressive. We'll just do it in a little bit more confined area. Last year, at the end of the year, we were pushing out pretty far and getting outside the goal area and putting pressure on people, and we may not do that early quite as much until we can see what the goalies can do. But it actually, one of our goalies is actually better at all the quick close-in stuff, so maybe we don't want to let him shoot from the outside. So I don't think we'll play much zone, put it that way, which we've never really played. We've always practiced it some, and we have it as a package, but and we'll probably slide less, because I think we're athletic enough to handle most people. But sometimes when you get matched up on a guy like Hogan, you have to slide because he's going to beat any one guy, so you have to have two people assigned, and as soon as your defense gets moving too much, basketball's a confined area. They can move. Lacrosse is 60 yards wide, and there's a lot of space, so you can't move quite so much. As soon as you move in lacrosse, the offense has the advantage, so you try to stay as constant as you can and in position as you can, and hit people as they shoot, and count on your goalie to make some saves. So we'll change a little bit, but I don't really see it to be too severe right now.
And you mentioned Chris Hogan. It's the first time you mentioned him, and I think we all get used to seeing him there, and he's always been the guy, and this is his fourth year. We're used to it.
He's
encapsulate him.
Yeah, well, he's just a horse. I mean, he's big time speed, and he's 220 pounds and 6'3", and I mean, it doesn't matter whether a long stick's playing him or a short stick. He can still threaten the other team, and he can shoot. He's going to get lots of shots, and he's working at putting them on cage a little bit better than he has before. And, the fact that he can do things gets their defense moving, and it allows our attack to be better finishers. And certainly in our two scrimmages, the kids have done a great job at catching and shooting on the backside and on plays that he might create. Colton Vosberg's come a long ways as an offensive mid. He's very difficult for people to handle. He'll typically run in there. Shea will play some midfield defense and midfield offense. Kyle Van Thoff is a freshman, very good middie that's another real good athlete, so he'll make some waves as a freshman. So we really have three freshmen playing key offensive roles for us right now, so it'll be interesting.